The Great War Hall of the Galactic Empire was bigger than 20 football fields. Its walls were made of bright silver metal that shined like mirrors. Hundreds of alien commanders sat in long rows. They all stared at giant screens hanging from the ceiling. The screens were so big they could show whole planets. Admiral Korath stood on a tall platform in front of everyone. He was the most feared military leader in the galaxy. His body looked like a giant octopus with 8 long arms that moved. When he talked, his voice was so loud it made the metal walls shake. "Look at these silly humans," he shouted while pointing at the screens. The pictures showed human soldiers crawling through thick mud. Their clothes were dirty and torn. They carried old metal guns that looked like toys compared to alien energy weapons. The humans looked small and weak next to the mighty alien warriors. The alien officers started laughing, but their laughs sounded very strange. Some made clicking sounds like insects. Others hissed like angry snakes. A few roared like monsters from scary movies, but they all thought the humans were the funniest thing they had ever seen. General Vextai stood up slowly. He was as tall as 3 humans, stacked on top of each other. His skin was covered in purple scales that changed color when light hit them. His eyes glowed yellow like car headlights. "These humans play war games like little children," he said with a mean smile. "My spy ships watched them for many months," he continued. "They hide behind rocks and trees instead of using force shields. They crawl on their stomachs like worms in the dirt. What kind of smart species fights this way? Our warriors use hover boots to fly above enemies." More loud laughter filled the huge. Hall Captain Yorth made clicking sounds with his mouth. He looked like a giant bug with 4 arms and shiny black eyes that never closed. "Our smart computers tell us humans have special soldiers called snipers," he announced. "These snipers use guns that shoot only 1 bullet at a time." He continued while shaking his head. "Can anyone believe such a stupid thing? 1 single bullet when our plasma guns can shoot 300 energy bolts every minute without stopping. Our weapons never run out of power." Admiral Korath waved his tentacles to make everyone quiet. "The humans live on many planets across the galaxy, but their army is a big joke," he declared. "They still use old chemical bombs that make black smoke and loud noise. Our energy weapons are completely silent and can melt thick steel in just a few seconds." The screens changed to show human soldiers training in military camps. The humans practiced shooting at paper targets from far away. They learned to hide in dark forests and broken buildings. They spent hours studying maps and making battle plans. The alien commanders watched all this and shook their heads like parents watching silly children. Commander Zelkar rose from his chair. He had bright silver skin and 3 eyes that could look in different directions at the same time. "The humans fight exactly like their caveman ancestors," he said in a bored voice. "They never learned how to fight modern wars. While we command space fleets that can destroy whole planets, they play with simple rifles and metal bullets," he added. "It will be like adults fighting babies. This war will be so easy we might finish it during lunchtime." The alien laughter got even louder. Some officers hit their knees with their hands. Others stomped their feet on the metal floor. The idea that primitive humans could fight the great galactic empire seemed like the best joke anyone had ever told. "Look at this pathetic example," Admiral Korath said while pointing to a new picture. A human female soldier lay completely still in tall green grass. She had not moved for 6 whole hours. Her rifle pointed at a practice target that was very far away. The aliens could not understand why anyone would wait so long just to shoot once. What kind of advanced civilization wastes precious time on such foolish behavior? General Vextai asked while laughing. "Our giant hover tanks can destroy entire cities in just 10 minutes. Their snipers need many hours to kill 1 single enemy. This conquest will be easier than taking candy from a baby," Captain Yorth said, while buzzing his insect wings. "I already planned my victory party. We will beat the humans so fast that half our soldiers will not get to shoot their weapons. The war will end before they know it started." The alien officers began talking excitedly about dividing human space among themselves. They argued about which planets had the best mining resources. They discussed which star systems would make perfect military bases. Many aliens had already picked out fancy new titles they would use after winning the war. Admiral Korath showed new pictures of human weapon factories. The humans made simple metal bullets using big, noisy machines. They created bombs with basic chemistry that any alien child could understand. Their most advanced rockets move slower than our oldest fighter ships, primitive tools made by a primitive species, he announced with disgust. Their bullets cannot scratch our advanced armor. Their bombs cannot damage our energy shields. They fight wars exactly like their great-great-grandfathers did thousands of years ago. What the mighty empire did not know was something very important. Human soldiers had learned their fighting skills by battling other humans. For countless years, every trick, every plan, every weapon had been tested against enemies who were just as smart and dangerous as they were. Human warriors learned to be unpredictable because soldiers who could be predicted always died quickly. They studied their enemies and adapted their methods. They never stopped improving their skills because improvement meant survival, far away on the peaceful planet called New Busan. Lieutenant Kim Nari sat alone in her small room. She was carefully cleaning her sniper rifle with a soft cloth. She had no idea that alien commanders millions of miles away were laughing at everything she represented. The weapon in her hands was much more than it appeared. Human engineers had spent decades perfecting every tiny part. The metal was stronger than anything aliens had seen. The bullets were designed by brilliant scientists who understood exactly how to penetrate the toughest armor. Nari had been a professional sniper for 15 long years. She knew that. Waiting patiently was more valuable than moving quickly. Perfect accuracy was more important than shooting fast. One perfectly placed bullet could change the outcome of an entire battle. She had learned these hard lessons while fighting other human enemies who were just as clever and deadly as she was. Every human soldier knew that their opponents could think and plan and surprise them. This made human warfare much more challenging than anything aliens had experienced. The rifle felt comfortable. In her experienced hands, every part had been tested and improved through many generations of human conflict. The telescopic sight could spot targets that normal eyes could never see. The trigger was so sensitive, it responded to the gentlest touch, while aliens trusted computer targeting systems and automatic weapons. Nari relied on her own trained eyes and steady hands. She could read wind direction by watching how grass moved. She understood how hot and cold air affected bullet flight. She knew that fancy technology meant nothing without the skill and experience to use it properly. Her training had been harder than anything the aliens could imagine. She learned to shoot accurately in pouring rain, burning heat, freezing cold, and howling. Wind Nari could hit moving targets while she was running. She had practiced shooting for so many years that it became as automatic as breathing. The aliens thought human weapons were old-fashioned, but they did not understand human determination and dedication. A human soldier would carry a heavy rifle for many days just to get one perfect shot opportunity. An alien warrior expected advanced technology to do all the difficult work for them. This difference would soon become very important in the Great Empire Hall. The meeting was finally ending. Admiral Korath gave his officers their final orders with supreme confidence. "Prepare our invasion fleets immediately," he commanded. "We will crush these pathetic humans so completely that every other species in the galaxy will surrender without fighting. The conquest of Earth and all human colonies will prove once and for all that the Galactic Empire cannot be stopped by anyone." He declared our victory will be so fast and complete that future generations will study it in military schools. The alien commanders left the enormous hall still chuckling about human fighting methods. They returned to their massive warships, absolutely certain that victory would come easily. None of them suspected that their superior technology would mean absolutely nothing against enemies who had spent lifetimes learning to turn weaknesses into deadly strengths on New Busan. Lieutenant Kim Nari finished cleaning her beloved rifle and carefully loaded a fresh magazine full of specially designed bullets. She did not know that interstellar war was racing toward her planet, but she was completely ready anyway. Human soldiers were always prepared for battle because they understood something fundamental that aliens had completely forgotten. Wars were not won by having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. Wars were won by warriors who absolutely refused to give up no matter what happened. The stage was perfectly set for an epic battle that would change everything forever. The Empire expected quick, easy victory. The humans quietly prepared for the fight of their lives. The alien war fleet appeared in space above New Busan like a dark storm cloud blocking out all the stars. Massive ships as big as small moons hung in the black emptiness, surrounded by thousands of smaller warships. Their metal hulls shined with strange alien materials that could deflect most human weapons. Energy cannons stuck out from every side like deadly thorns. Each giant ship carried enough firepower to turn entire cities into smoking craters in just minutes. The alien fleet was so large it would take hours just to count all the vessels. Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the small blue and green planet below. "This pathetic little world will be our first example," he told his officers. When other human colonies see how quickly we destroy New Busan, they will surrender without fighting. We will not even need to use our full strength. The planet New Busan was home to 3 million human colonists who lived in peaceful farming communities. They grew food crops that fed people on dozens of other worlds. Most of the colonists had never seen real warfare. They lived quiet, simple lives far from the violence of the galaxy. Colonel Park Hyunsu commanded the New Busan Defense Force from a small, underground bunker. His army had only 20,000 soldiers armed with basic human weapons. No energy shields, no plasma cannons, no hover tanks, just brave men and women with rifles and determination. "Sir, the aliens are sending us a message," reported Communications Officer Lee Daeun. Her fingers trembled slightly as she worked the radio controls. "They demand that we surrender immediately. They say resistance is completely useless against their superior technology." Park smiled, but his eyes were cold and hard. "Tell them that humans have an old saying," he replied. "The size of the fight in the dog matters more than the size of the dog in the fight. Then cut off all communications. We have important work to do." The invasion began just as the sun rose over New Busan with a terrifying display of alien power energy beams thick as tree trunks lanced down from the orbiting ships. The beams hit major cities and military bases, turning buildings into clouds of burning dust. Explosions lit up the morning sky like deadly fireworks. Giant alien landing ships descended through the atmosphere carrying thousands of hover tanks and armored soldiers. The ships were so big they cast shadows over entire valleys. When they landed, the ground shook like earthquakes. Their metal ramps opened with hissing sounds. Hover tanks floated out of the landing ships, moving without touching the ground. Their crews were confident that any remaining human resistance would collapse within a few hours. The aliens had conquered 47 other worlds, and every victory had been quick and easy. But as the alien ground forces spread across New Busan, they discovered something very strange. The humans were not where they were supposed to be. Their heat sensors showed no large groups of enemy soldiers. Their scanners detected no armored vehicles rushing to fight them. Instead, the countryside seemed completely empty and quiet. The aliens found abandoned farms and deserted towns, but no armies waiting to defend them. The silence felt wrong somehow, like the calm before a terrible storm. Private First Class Choi Minho piloted his hover tank at the front of the alien advance. His tank floated 3 feet above the ground, moving smoothly over rocks and streams. "Where are all the human soldiers hiding?" he asked his squad leader through the radio. "Our advanced scanners should easily detect their primitive vehicles," Sergeant Thaknar replied over the communication system. "Perhaps they all ran away when they saw our mighty fleet. These humans are probably hiding in caves like frightened animals." What the aliens did not understand was that humans had learned long ago that fighting superior firepower head-on was suicide. Instead, the human defenders had disappeared into the landscape like ghosts carrying their weapons with them. Every hill, every forest, every ruined building now hid soldiers who understood patience better than any alien could imagine. The human strategy was older than the alien. Civilization. They would not stand in lines and fight like ancient warriors. They would strike from hiding, then vanish before the enemy could respond. This was guerrilla warfare, perfected over thousands of years of human conflict. Lieutenant Kim Nari lay perfectly motionless in a carefully hidden position on Hill 347, overlooking the main valley road. She had been waiting in the same spot for 6 hours without moving a muscle. Her sniper rifle was aimed at the path where alien vehicles would pass. Through her telescopic scope, she watched hover tanks advancing in perfect formation. Their crews sat exposed in open hatches, talking and laughing. They moved with the confidence of soldiers who had never faced real danger. Their formations were neat and predictable like parade formations. Nari had studied alien military tactics from captured intelligence reports. She knew they relied on overwhelming firepower and technological superiority. They expected enemies to fight conventionally using large armies and obvious positions. What they did not expect was invisible, death striking from impossible distances. The alien commanders had made a critical mistake. They assumed that human tactics were primitive because human weapons looked simple. But human warfare had evolved to fight against opponents who were just as intelligent and adaptable as themselves. Every human tactic had been tested in blood against enemies who could think and learn. Human soldiers knew that survival meant being. Unpredictable human commanders understood that winning meant using every advantage. No matter how small, Captain Yorth buzzed his insect wings nervously as his hover tank moved through a narrow valley. "Something feels wrong about this place," he told his driver. "The humans should be defending their cities and farms, but we find nothing but empty buildings. Maybe they are more cowardly than we thought," his driver replied. "But I do not like this silence. Our sensors show no enemies, but I feel like we are being watched by invisible eyes." High above them, on the surrounding hills, dozens of human snipers lay hidden in positions that had been prepared months in advance. Each sniper had selected their targets and calculated distances, wind speed, and bullet drop. They waited with the patience of professional hunters. The aliens had brought massive armies and advanced technology to fight a conventional war. But the humans were not going to fight conventionally. They were going to fight smart, using every lesson learned from centuries of warfare against their own kind. Staff Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo lay hidden in a rocky outcrop 2 kilometers from the alien column. He had been watching enemy movements through his scope for hours, noting patrol patterns and identifying priority targets. His rifle was loaded with specially designed armor-piercing bullets. Corporal Njihee had positioned herself in the ruins of an old farmhouse. Her hiding spot gave her a clear view of the main road where alien supply vehicles would pass. She knew that destroying supplies was just as important as killing soldiers. Major Kim Jinwoo crouched in a carefully camouflaged position near an alien landing zone. His job was to eliminate communication specialists and sensor operators. Without communications and sensors, the alien army would become blind and deaf. The human defenders had spent months preparing for this moment. They had studied alien weaknesses and developed tactics specifically designed to exploit them. They understood that they could not win through superior firepower, but they could win through superior strategy as the alien advance continued deeper into what they thought was empty territory. They were actually moving into a carefully prepared trap. Every step took them further from their landing zones and closer to positions where human snipers waited with deadly patience. The aliens expected quick victory against a primitive enemy, but they were about to discover that the most dangerous enemy was not the one with the biggest weapons, but the one who refused to fight fair. The humans were about to teach the Galactic Empire a lesson in real warfare. Colonel Park Hyun-soo watched the alien advance from his command bunker deep underground. His communications teams tracked enemy movements while his intelligence officers analyzed alien tactics. Soon he would give the order that would begin the real battle. The alien invasion had succeeded in landing their forces, but landing was only the beginning. Now they would learn why humans had survived and thrived in a dangerous galaxy. They would discover that sometimes the most primitive tactics executed with perfect precision could defeat the most advanced technology. The stage was set for a battle unlike anything the aliens had ever experienced. They thought they were hunting helpless prey, but they were actually walking into a trap set by predators who had been perfecting their craft for thousands of years. Lieutenant Kim Nari adjusted her scope slightly and controlled her breathing. She could see alien officers standing carelessly in their vehicle hatches, pointing at maps and giving orders. They had no idea that death was watching them through crosshairs from impossible distances. The first shot of the real war was only moments away. The alien war machine had rolled across New Busan for 3 long days without finding any real enemies to fight. General Vextai was growing more impatient by the hour. His mighty forces had destroyed several small human outposts and captured a few thousand frightened civilians, but the main enemy army seemed to have vanished like smoke in the wind. "This is becoming very boring," he complained to his staff officers over the radio. "Where are their famous warriors? Where are these dangerous snipers that our intelligence warned us about? All we find are empty buildings and abandoned military equipment." The alien general stood in the open hatch of his command hover tank, feeling completely safe. His purple scales gleamed in the afternoon sunlight as he gestured at the hills around them. "These humans are even more cowardly than we expected," he announced to his subordinates from her perfectly hidden position on Hill 347. Lieutenant Kim Nari had been watching the alien patrol patterns. For many hours, she had identified the command vehicles by their special markings and the way other units moved to protect them. Her target was clearly the most important alien in the valley. Through her rifle scope, she could see the alien commander, standing carelessly in his tank hatch. He was pointing at different hills and explaining something to the officers around him. The distance was exactly 800 meters, a challenging shot, but well within her proven abilities. Nari had made shots like this thousands of times during 15 years of training and real combat. Her breathing slowed to its special combat rhythm that she had practiced until it became automatic. Her heartbeat dropped to its calm, steady pace. The alien commander was making the kind of mistake that no experienced human warrior would ever make. He was exposing himself as if he believed he was completely safe. His arrogance made him careless, and carelessness in war meant death. Nari felt the familiar weight of her rifle against her shoulder. The weapon had been her constant companion through countless battles. Each part had been carefully maintained and tested. The specially designed bullet in the chamber was made from materials created to penetrate. Even the strongest alien armor, she controlled her breathing exactly as she had been taught. Inhale slowly, hold steady, squeeze the trigger. During the natural pause between heartbeats, the rifle kicked against her shoulder with the recoil she knew so well. The bullet crossed the 800-meter distance in less than 1 second, traveling faster than sound itself. General Vextai never heard the shot that killed him. His head snapped backward as the projectile found its mark and his body crumpled into the command tank. Chaos exploded through the alien formation like a bomb going off. Soldiers who had never experienced sniper fire scrambled for cover, not understanding where the attack had come from or how to fight back their advanced. Energy weapons were completely useless against an enemy they could not see. Where did that shot come from? Screamed Captain Yorth, his insect body shaking with fear and rage. Our sensors show absolutely nothing. How can their primitive weapons penetrate our advanced armor? The alien officers fired their plasma rifles wildly at empty hills, hitting nothing but rocks and trees. The answer to their confusion lay in human engineering and determination, while aliens relied on energy shields and computer. Targeting humans had spent generations perfecting the ancient art of making small objects move extremely fast. Naris Bullet had been crafted by metallurgists who understood penetration better than any alien scientist. As the alien forces tried desperately to reorganize themselves more, rifle shots rang out from completely different positions across the surrounding hills. Human snipers trained in patience and precision began picking off officers and specialists with methodical, deadly efficiency. Each shot was carefully chosen to cause maximum disruption and confusion. The human snipers did not waste ammunition on random targets. They selected communications officers, sensor operators, and vehicle commanders, knowing that removing these key personnel would paralyze entire units. Major Kim Jinwoo, positioned 2 kilometers away from the main battle, eliminated an alien communications specialist with one perfect shot. The aliens immediately lost contact with half their units. Sergeant Lee Sujin, hidden in the ruins of an old farmhouse, killed a hover tank driver, causing the vehicle to crash into a ditch. Lieutenant Park Bo-young, concealed in a tree line that the aliens had ignored, put a bullet through an alien sensor operator. The advanced scanning equipment that the aliens depended on suddenly went silent, leaving them blind to human movements. The mighty Galactic Empire, masters of 47 conquered worlds, found themselves under attack by enemies they could not see, could not predict, and could not understand. For the first time in their long military history, their overwhelming technological superiority meant absolutely nothing. The aliens had grown soft and predictable after decades of easy victories against primitive species. They expected enemies to fight conventionally, using large formations and obvious tactics. What they got instead was something their military training had never prepared them for. Human warfare had been shaped by fighting other humans who were just as intelligent, adaptable, and dangerous. Every human tactic had been tested against opponents who could think, learn, and surprise them. This made human soldiers far more flexible and creative than anything aliens had encountered. The alien commanders tried to use their standard procedures for dealing with enemy attacks. They called for artillery support, but the human snipers had no fixed positions to target. They attempted electronic countermeasures, but human weapons used no electronics to jam. Captain Thoknar, now the senior surviving officer in his sector, tried desperately to understand what was happening. Our training manuals have no procedures for this type of combat, he radioed to Fleet Command. How do we fight enemies who will not stand and fight like civilized warriors? The answer was that humans had learned long ago that honor and civilization meant nothing to the dead. They fought to win using every advantage they could find, while aliens expected their enemies to follow predictable patterns. Humans specialized in being unpredictable. As the afternoon wore on, the invisible attacks continued with deadly precision. Human snipers moved between carefully prepared positions, using underground tunnels and hidden paths that had been constructed months before the invasion began. The aliens found themselves trapped in their vehicles, afraid to expose themselves, but unable to advance without officers to lead them. Their mighty war machine was being systematically dismantled by enemies using weapons that belonged in a museum. Corporal Njihye had relocated to her third shooting position of the day. She watched through her scope as alien soldiers huddled behind their damaged vehicles. Their body language showed fear and confusion, emotions that most of them had never experienced in combat. The psychological impact was devastating. Alien warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds were now jumping at shadows and refusing to leave their armored vehicles. They began seeing snipers everywhere, even in places where no humans were hiding. What made the situation worse for the aliens was their complete inability to adapt. Their military doctrine was based on overwhelming firepower and technological superiority when those advantages were neutralized. They had no backup plans. Human military training emphasized flexibility and adaptation. Human soldiers learned to fight in any environment against any enemy using whatever weapons were available. Alien soldiers learned to rely on their technology and were helpless when that technology failed them. As evening approached, the alien advance had completely stopped. No commander wanted to risk exposing himself to the invisible death that seemed to strike from everywhere and nowhere. The invasion that was supposed to last 3 days had bogged down after the first engagement. In his orbiting flagship, Admiral Korath received increasingly desperate reports from the surface. His ground forces were paralyzed by fear of an enemy they could not locate or understand. For the first time in his career, he began to wonder if the humans might actually be dangerous. Lieutenant Kim Nari cleaned her rifle and prepared to move to her next position. She had no way of knowing that her single shot had begun a chain reaction that would change the course of galactic history. All she knew was that she had done her job well, and the enemy was learning to fear human precision. The alien invasion had achieved its initial objectives, but those objectives no longer mattered. The Empire had landed its forces successfully, but now those forces were trapped in a nightmare of invisible enemies and constant death. The real war was just beginning, and the humans were teaching their enemies the first lesson in a curriculum that would shatter alien confidence forever. Sometimes the most primitive weapons in the hands of skilled warriors could defeat the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Admiral Korath paced back and forth across his flagship command center like a caged animal. His 8 tentacles writhed with fury and disbelief as report after terrible report flooded in from the surface. In just 6 hours, his supposedly invincible ground forces had lost 37 officers and key specialists to attackers they could not even see. "How is this even possible?" he roared at his terrified intelligence staff. "Our advanced sensors detect no large-scale troop movements, no heavy weapons, no organized military formations. Yet my best commanders are dying one by one like flies." Commander Zelkar studied the holographic battle display with growing horror and confusion. "Sir, our analysis suggests we are facing individual human soldiers, operating completely independently across a very wide area. They strike once with perfect accuracy, then disappear without leaving any trace." Individual soldiers. Korath screamed so loudly that his voice echoed through the metal corridors. "You are telling me that single humans with museum-piece weapons are terrorizing an entire army corps that has conquered 47 worlds." The truth was even more humiliating than the Admiral wanted to admit. Human snipers working alone were systematically destroying the command structure of the most powerful military force in galactic history. Each shot was precisely calculated to cause maximum chaos and fear. On the planet's surface, Lieutenant Kim Nari had moved to her 4th different shooting position. Since dawn, she traveled through a network of underground tunnels that New Busan colonists had secretly prepared for exactly this type of invasion. The tunnels connected to basements, storm drains, and hidden bunkers across the entire region. Now she lay concealed in the twisted wreckage of a destroyed warehouse, watching alien search teams try desperately to locate her previous firing positions. The aliens moved in textbook formation patterns that made them easy to predict and easier to target through. Her rifle scope Nari observed an alien squad leader directing his frightened troops with obvious desperation and growing panic. The creature seemed to be arguing with his soldiers who clearly wanted to stay hidden inside their armored vehicles. The range was only 400 meters, an easy shot that would further damage alien morale and command capability. Nari controlled her breathing and squeezed the trigger with the smooth motion that had become second nature after 15 years of constant practice. The bullet struck the squad leader's center mass, spinning him around before he collapsed onto the ground. His soldiers immediately panicked, diving for any cover they could find. Their energy weapons fired wildly in all directions, hitting empty air and abandoned buildings. They were shooting at ghosts and shadows, wasting precious ammunition, while the real threat remained completely invisible. The alien soldiers had no training for this type of warfare. Their doctrine assumed enemies would reveal themselves by shooting back. Across the battlefield, other human snipers continued their deadly patient work. Staff Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo had positioned himself in an abandoned grain silo that gave him perfect views of 3 different valleys. He systematically targeted alien vehicle commanders, watching through his scope as enemy units lost coordination. Corporal Ji found an excellent hiding spot in a rocky cliff face that overlooked the main supply route. Her job was to eliminate alien communication specialists and sensor operators. Without these key personnel, alien units became blind, deaf, and isolated. The psychological effect on alien forces was becoming catastrophic. Soldiers who had never experienced real fear in combat began jumping at every sound and shadow. They refused to leave their vehicles even for necessary maintenance and supply operations. Officers stopped exposing themselves to direct their troops, instead communicating only through encrypted radio channels that human intelligence teams were working frantically to decode. The entire alien command structure was adapting to survive, but adaptation meant paralysis. Captain Thoknar, now acting commander after his general's death, tried desperately to develop new tactics for fighting an enemy that refused to fight conventionally. They hide like cowards instead of engaging in honorable face-to-face combat. He reported to the orbiting fleet, "How do we defeat an enemy that will not stand still long enough for us to shoot them? Our weapons are designed to destroy large formations and fixed positions, not to hunt individual soldiers hiding in impossible places." But the humans were adapting even faster than their enemies. When alien officers stopped providing clear targets, the snipers immediately shifted to equipment destruction. Advanced sensor arrays, communication dishes, and weapon control systems began failing under precise long-range fire. Human intelligence had studied alien technology. For months before the invasion, they knew exactly which components were most vulnerable and most expensive to replace. A single well-placed bullet could disable equipment worth millions of credits. Major Kim Jin-woo had identified a critical alien communication relay station built on top of a tall hill. The station coordinated movements between dozens of ground units and the orbiting fleet. One shot through the main transmitter array would isolate entire sectors. The shot required extreme precision at maximum range, but Jin-woo had been preparing for exactly this type of target. His bullet struck the transmitter dead center, causing a spectacular explosion of sparks and smoke. Instantly, dozens of alien units lost contact with their Commander Sergeant Lee Soo-jin focused on alien medical evacuation vehicles. She understood that destroying medical support would force the aliens to commit more resources to evacuating wounded soldiers. Each ambulance she disabled meant fewer troops available for combat operations. Lieutenant Park Bo-young specialized in targeting alien fuel and ammunition supplies. Every hover tank and energy weapon required constant resupply of power cells, and fuel-destroying supply vehicles forced alien units to conserve ammunition and limit their movements. The combined effect was devastating. The alien war machine that had seemed unstoppable just days before was grinding to a halt under the constant pressure of invisible enemies who struck without warning, then vanished without trace. As darkness fell on the fourth day of invasion, the mighty Galactic Empire controlled only the ground their soldiers could physically stand on. The moment they tried to move forward, invisible death reached out. From the shadows, to claim them, alien commanders who had expected to be celebrating victory were instead sending increasingly desperate requests for reinforcements, orbital bombardment, and permission to withdraw to more defensible positions. Admiral Korath stared at the tactical displays showing his forces pinned down across dozens of locations. His invasion timetable had completely collapsed. The easy conquest that was supposed to last 3 days had become a nightmare with no end in sight, sir. Commander Zelkar reported quietly. We have lost over 200 officers and specialists in 4 days. At this rate, we will have no experienced leadership left within a week. The troops are calling human snipers ghost killers and claiming they can shoot through solid matter. The truth was simpler than the aliens wanted to admit. Human weapons were not magical, but they were the result of centuries of engineering refinement. Every bullet was precisely manufactured, every rifle was perfectly calibrated, every scope was optically perfect. What the Empire considered primitive technology was actually highly sophisticated engineering that had been tested and improved through generations of human warfare. The aliens had confused simple appearance with crude design. In his underground command bunker, Colonel Park Hyun-soo monitored reports from his sniper teams with quiet satisfaction. His strategy was working perfectly. The aliens were learning that technological superiority meant nothing without the tactical flexibility to use it effectively. The human defenders had turned the aliens' greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Their reliance on advanced technology made them predictable. Their confidence in superior firepower made them careless. Their assumption of easy victory made them vulnerable. Lieutenant Kim Nari prepared for another night of patient hunting. She had already eliminated 6 high-value targets, and the night was still young. The aliens would learn that darkness belonged to those who understood how to use it. The Empire had come to New Busan expecting to demonstrate their overwhelming power. Instead, they were receiving an education in the deadliest subject humans had ever mastered, the art of making their enemies afraid to fight. By the 6th day of what should have been a simple conquest, Admiral Korath's mighty invasion force was in complete chaos. What had started as a demonstration of galactic power had become a humiliating nightmare of constant casualties and growing terror. His ground commanders were refusing to leave their fortified positions, and morale was collapsing throughout the entire army. Sir, we have now lost over 200 officers and specialists, reported Commander Zelkar, his voice shaking with fear that he could no longer hide. The common soldiers are calling human snipers ghost killers and claiming they possess supernatural powers that allow them to kill through solid walls. Korath slammed his tentacles against the tactical display, causing the holographic images to flicker and distort. This is impossible, he screamed. They are using primitive kinetic weapons that should not even scratch our advanced armor. There must be some logical explanation for how they penetrate our defenses so effectively. The truth was actually much simpler than the aliens wanted to accept. Human metallurgists and weapons engineers had spent centuries perfecting the science of armor penetration. What the Empire dismissed as primitive technology was really highly refined engineering that had been tested against every possible defense. On the planet's surface, Captain Thoknar had gathered his few remaining officers in what he believed was a completely secure bunker. The concrete structure had been built by human colonists as a storm shelter, but the aliens thought its thick walls would protect them from sniper fire. We must call for immediate orbital bombardment, suggested Major Vorth, his insect wings trembling with stress and exhaustion. Turn this entire region into melted glass and eliminate all possible hiding places. These ghost killers seem capable of striking from anywhere. Negative, Thoknar replied firmly. Fleet Command wants prisoners and intact infrastructure for study. Besides, these humans appear capable of surviving almost anything. If they can hide from our sensors, they might survive even orbital bombardment. What the alien officers did not know was that Lieutenant Kim Nari was already inside their supposedly impregnable Defensive perimeter. She had crawled through a damaged storm drain that connected to the bunker's foundation. The concrete walls that should have protected the aliens were actually trapping them. Through a small crack in the foundation, Nari could clearly see the alien officers clustered around their tactical display. They had bunched together in exactly the way that professional snipers called a target-rich environment. Her shot would have to be absolutely perfect because she would only get one chance. The angle was extremely difficult, and the range was less than 50 meters, but Nari had trained for precisely this type of close-quarters precision shooting. Her bullet would have to travel through the narrow gap ricochet off a support, beam, and strike her target in the one vulnerable spot not protected by armor. The shot rang out in the confined space, causing massive confusion and panic among the surviving aliens. Captain Thoknar collapsed with a bullet wound to his neck while his officers screamed in terror and fired their weapons randomly at the concrete walls. "She is inside the building with us," shrieked Major Vorth as he blasted holes in the walls with his energy rifle. "The ghost killer has somehow gotten inside our secure bunker." How is that even possible? But when the terrified aliens searched every corner of the bunker, they found only empty rooms and silence. Nari had already vanished through the same drain she had used to enter, leaving behind only the faint scent of human sweat and the growing legend of supernatural enemies. The incident completely shattered what remained of alien confidence and morale. If human snipers could strike inside fortified bunkers, then nowhere was truly safe. Soldiers began abandoning their posts, and entire units refused direct orders to advance. Admiral Korath realized that his grand invasion was not just failing, but turning into a complete disaster that would humiliate the Empire throughout the galaxy. These humans fight without honor, without formations, without any regard for civilized rules of warfare. He raged at his staff. "They are like a disease that infects our army with fear and uncertainty. Every day we remain on this planet, we lose more soldiers too. Enemies we cannot locate, cannot predict, and cannot fight effectively." The alien military doctrine had been designed for fighting conventional enemies who used predictable tactics and obvious strategies. Human warfare was something completely outside their understanding or experience. Staff Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo had positioned himself in the ruins of a communications tower that gave him excellent views of alien supply convoys moving between their landing zones. He had been systematically destroying supply vehicles for 3 days. Each destroyed truck or hover transport forced the aliens to commit more resources to protecting their supply lines. Instead of advancing and conquering territory, they were spending most of their effort just trying to keep their forces fed and supplied. Corporal and Jihye had found a perfect sniper nest in a natural cave system that overlooked the main alien staging area. Her patient observations had revealed the daily patterns of alien logistics and command. Rotations at exactly the same time. Each day, alien officers gathered for briefings and planning sessions. Jihye had been eliminating one key staff officer per day, causing increasing disruption to alien planning and coordination. Major Kim Jinwoo had identified the aliens' primary fuel depot, a massive storage facility that supplied power cells to hundreds of vehicles and weapons systems. One perfectly placed incendiary round had turned the depot into a raging inferno visible from orbit. The explosion not only destroyed millions of credits worth of fuel, but also served as a psychological weapon that could be seen by every alien soldier on the planet. The message was clear. Nowhere was safe from human precision and determination. Lieutenant Park Bo-young specialized in eliminating alien sensor operators and communications specialists. Without these technical experts, alien units became isolated and vulnerable to further attacks. The combined pressure was having exactly the effect that human planners had intended. The alien war machine was slowly grinding to a halt under the constant stress of invisible enemies and unpredictable attacks. As night fell on the 6th day, Admiral Korath made the most difficult decision of his military career. He could continue the invasion and watch his forces slowly destroyed by enemies they could not fight, or he could admit defeat and withdraw. Sir Commander Zelkar said quietly, "Fleet Command is demanding an explanation for our delays. They want to know why we have not completed the conquest of a single agricultural planet defended by primitive weapons." Korath stared at the tactical displays showing his forces pinned down in defensive positions across the planet. His mighty army that had conquered 47 worlds was being defeated by farmers with rifles. Prepare all units for immediate withdrawal to orbit. He finally ordered, "We will maintain the blockade and consider orbital bombardment options." These humans have proven that ground invasion is not feasible with current tactics. The order to retreat spread through alien forces like wildfire. Soldiers who had been trapped in their vehicles for days began the dangerous process of moving back to their landing zones, knowing that human snipers would be watching every step. Even during the withdrawal, the invisible death continued to claim victims. Lieutenant Kim Nari and her fellow snipers maintained their pressure right up to the moment the last alien transport lifted off from New Busan's soil as the alien fleet regrouped in orbit. Admiral Korath faced the humiliating task of explaining to his superiors how a handful of humans with primitive weapons had defeated the most advanced military force in the galaxy. The Empire had learned a lesson that would change their approach to conquest forever. Sometimes the most sophisticated technology was no match for simple weapons in the hands of warriors who understood patience, precision, and the will to never surrender on. The surface of New Busan Lieutenant Kim Nari cleaned her rifle and counted her remaining ammunition. She had no idea that her actions had potentially saved human civilization from alien conquest. She was simply a soldier who had done her job with the deadly efficiency that made humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The withdrawal of the mighty Galactic Empire from New Busan began in complete chaos and ended in total humiliation. Alien forces that had landed just 1 week earlier with supreme confidence and victory parades now fled in desperate disorder. Their commanders were dead. Their morale was completely shattered and their legendary reputation lay in ruins. Admiral Korath watched the shameful evacuation from his flagship bridge, his tentacles coiled tight with rage, disbelief, and something he had never felt before in his long military career, genuine fear. In 47 previous conquests across the galaxy, no enemy had ever forced his troops to retreat like beaten cowards. "Final casualty report, sir," announced Commander Zelkar, his voice hollow, with defeat and shame. 412 officers and specialists eliminated by sniper fire. Equipment losses include 37 hover tanks, 56 communications arrays, and countless sensor systems destroyed, all accomplished by an estimated 40 to 50 individual human snipers. The numbers were staggering. An entire army corps equipped with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy had been defeated by a handful of humans using what aliens considered museum-piece rifles. The Empire's reputation for invincibility had been shattered by farmers with patience. Lieutenant Kim Nari emerged from her final hiding position as the last alien transport ship disappeared into the morning sky. She had spent 18 hours underground in a drainage tunnel waiting to ensure the withdrawal was completely genuine. Her rifle was still warm from eliminating an alien evacuation coordinator. Around her, other human snipers appeared from positions that had seemed completely empty just moments before. They materialized from spider holes, camouflaged bunkers, and hidden caves like ghosts becoming solid. Staff Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo climbed down from a communications tower where he had lived for 4 days. Corporal Ji-hee crawled out of a carefully disguised position that had been invisible even from 10 meters away. Major Kim Jin-woo emerged from the burned ruins of a farmhouse where he had made his deadly stand. Lieutenant Park Bo-young appeared from a tree line that aliens had searched 3 times without finding her. Colonel Park Hyun-soo met his sniper teams in the town square. his weathered face showing both immense pride and bone-deep exhaustion. "The alien fleet is withdrawing to the outer solar system," he reported while studying satellite intelligence data. "Our sources suggest they are regrouping to consider orbital bombardment options." "Let them come back," Nari said quietly while checking her rifle's action with practiced efficiency. "We will be waiting right here. Every shot will count, and every alien who sets foot on our world will learn to fear human determination in the cold depths of space." Admiral Korath faced a strategic dilemma that challenged everything his civilization believed about warfare conquest and military superiority. The humans had conclusively proven that advanced technology meant absolutely nothing against opponents who understood patience, precision, and psychological warfare. His fleet possessed enough firepower to reduce New Busan to radioactive ash in mere hours. But destroying the planet would teach him nothing about fighting humans. The other human colonies would learn from this battle and prepare similar defenses, turning every world into a nightmare for conventional invasion forces. Sir Commander Zelkar said very carefully, "Perhaps we should completely reconsider our entire approach to these humans. Their fighting methods are unexpectedly effective against our standard tactical doctrines. Our military academies have no training for this type of warfare." Korath stared at the tactical display showing New Busan, a small agricultural world that had just delivered the most humiliating defeat in Empire military history. The humans had not won through superior technology or overwhelming numbers. They had won through patient skill and an understanding of warfare that his species had never encountered. The alien admiral realized that every assumption his civilization had made about human capabilities was completely wrong. These were not primitive savages using crude weapons. They were highly sophisticated warriors who had perfected tactics that could neutralize any technological advantage. For the first time in his distinguished military career, Admiral Korath issued an order that he never expected to give signal the entire fleet he commanded grimly. "We are withdrawing from this star system immediately. All human colonies are to be reclassified from easy conquest targets to extreme danger zones." The news of New Busan's impossible victory spread across human space faster than the speed of light. Communication networks carried the story to every human world colony and space station. The legend of the sniper war grew with each telling inspiring hope and determination throughout human civilization. On distant Earth, military academies began studying the Battle of New Busan as a perfect example of how inferior forces could defeat superior enemies through superior tactics. Human colonies that had been preparing to surrender began organizing their own sniper training programs. The Galactic Empire, meanwhile, faced a crisis of confidence that shook their government to its foundations. If a single agricultural world could defeat their finest army, what would happen when they faced Earth itself, with its billions of defenders and centuries of military experience? Lieutenant Kim Nari cleaned her rifle one final time and placed it carefully in its protective case. She had fired exactly 47 shots during the week-long battle, and each bullet had found its intended target. She had no way of knowing that her precision and patience had saved not just New Busan, but potentially all of human civilization. The young sniper was simply a soldier who had done her job with the deadly efficiency that made humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy. She understood something that aliens with all their advanced technology could never comprehend. War was not won by the biggest weapons, but by the warriors who refused to give up. As news of the victory reached other human worlds, the story took on mythical proportions. The woman sniper who had fired the first shot that killed an alien general became a symbol of human resistance. Her name was spoken in whispers throughout the galaxy, inspiring fear in alien hearts and hope in human souls. The Battle of New Busan proved that humans could not be conquered through conventional warfare. The Empire had brought overwhelming technological superiority and still been defeated by patience, precision, and the unbreakable human spirit. Admiral Korath returned to the Empire capital in disgrace, facing questions from his superiors about how 47 worlds' worth of military experience had been defeated by farmers. The official report classified humans as a Class A military threat requiring special tactical considerations. The Empire Council met in emergency session to discuss the human problem. Some members suggested immediate, orbital bombardment of all human worlds. Others proposed diplomatic solutions to avoid further military humiliation. The debate raged for days without resolution. Meanwhile, human colonies across the galaxy began implementing the new Busan Defense Protocol. Every world started training sniper teams and preparing hidden positions. Farmers learned to shoot miners, practiced camouflage, and teachers studied guerrilla warfare tactics. The psychological impact on the Empire was devastating there. Reputation for invincibility had been their greatest weapon. More species had surrendered without fighting than had been conquered through actual warfare. Now that reputation lay in ruins, other alien species began to whisper about the humans who had defeated the mighty Empire. Small rebellions started breaking out on conquered worlds inspired by the impossible victory on New Busan. The Empire's control over their territory began to weaken. On New Busan, life slowly returned to normal, but the planet was forever changed. Monuments were built to honor the sniper teams who had saved their world. The rifle ranges where Lieutenant Kim Nari had trained became places of pilgrimage for aspiring marksmen. The aliens had laughed at human tactics, calling them primitive and outdated. But when the laughter stopped and the smoke cleared, it was the humans who stood victorious on their home soil. The Empire had learned the hardest lesson in military history: never underestimate an enemy who fights. For their home, years later, military historians would study the Battle of New Busan as the turning point in galactic history. The day when the impossible became possible and the underdog defeated the giant through skill, patience, and unshakable determination. Lieutenant Kim Nari returned to her simple life as a farmer and part-time soldier. She tended her crops during the day and maintained her rifle skills in the evening, always ready for the day when enemies might return to test human resolve again. The galaxy had learned to fear the quiet patience of human snipers who could wait motionless for hours, then strike with lethal precision. The Empire discovered that sometimes the most primitive tactics executed with perfect skill could defeat the most advanced technology. The woman sniper who had started it all with one perfect shot had changed the course of history forever. Her bullet had not just killed an alien general, it had killed the myth of Empire invincibility and given birth to a new legend of human courage. The Galactic Empire never again attempted to invade human space through conventional warfare. They had learned that humans were not just another primitive species to be conquered, they were the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy, precisely because they fought like their survival depended on every single shot. And on New Busan, in the quiet hills where the battle had been fought, Lieutenant Kim Nari